Hello, everybody. My name is Kai Basu. I'm the CTO of Kovair. Today, we have a webinar on cloud integration in 3 steps using the Kovair Enterprise Service Bus, ESB. And today with me, I have Ken Vollmer, the Principal Analyst of Forrester Research. Ken serves the application development and delivery professionals. He covers trends, issues, and strategies related to all forms of integration, including business process management, BPM, enterprise application integration, EAI, B2B integration, B2BI, and electronic data interchange, EDI. So the format of this webinar will be, first, Ken will give a presentation about cloud integration, especially focusing on ESB, Enterprise Service Bus. And after that, I'll be talking about this cloud integration in 3 steps using some of the Kovair technologies. So I'll hand it over to Ken. So Ken, I'll just switch it to you. You can start your presentation.
Okay, can you see my screen? Oh, there we go. Should see it now.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you, Sky. Welcome, everyone. It's my pleasure to be with you today to speak with you about the cloud-based integration trends and strategies. Our clients are seeing, we are seeing very high levels of interest from our clients about a lot of things related to cloud, and cloud-based integration is one of them. But we're also seeing a lot of confusion as well, so I hope to shed a little light on the subject today and make it more understandable as what we're talking about when we talk about cloud-based integration, and more importantly, why should you care? First, our definition of cloud-based integration. We believe it's integration services provided as a SaaS offering by a third-party vendor. Integration capability covers the complete range of deployment options, including connecting to both on-premise and other hosted services or other hosted resources. In other words, it's hosted integration capability. Capability that does not require a lot of technical expertise or time for you to implement, leading to faster deployments and a more agile approach to many of your integration requirements. This chart shows Forrester's SPI model of cloud computing, and it just breaks down at a very high level what the different major categories are. At the top, you see software as a service, which are finished applications that you can rent and customize. Platform as a service, which are developer platforms that abstract infrastructure, operating system, and middleware to drive developer productivity. And finally, infrastructure as a service or deployment platforms that abstract the total operating infrastructure. We'll be talking today primarily about the SaaS category, and this chart breaks it down a little bit further, showing some of the key deliverables under the software as a service category. And the one we will focus on today will be cloud-based integration that I show circled in red. So first, we need to look at some terminology that's frequently used when talking about cloud-based integration. The first one is a situation where you have integration with the cloud. This is a case where the integration technology or the integration solution is installed on-premise inside the enterprise and supports interaction with cloud-based applications. So that's integration with the cloud. The next step is integration in the cloud, and this is where the integration software is hosted in the internet itself and supports communications to both other cloud-based applications or back to the enterprise itself. So the difference is integration with the cloud, the software is installed in the enterprise. Integration in the cloud, the software is hosted on a third-party platform. And this is cloud-based integration, is a hosted integration solution. So bottom line is cloud-based integration supports integration in the cloud. Hopefully that's not too confusing. All right, so let's look at some advantages of a cloud-based integration solution. Well, the first one is you can get faster deployments, as you have no complicated software to install. You don't, in most cases, you don't need to have a capital expense to prove for additional hardware or software. And the deployments are also aided by pre-configured connectors and adapters which are available to you with a cloud-based integration solution. These tools or solutions can be up and running in hours instead of weeks, which is a significant improvement. They are engineered for quick deployment, and Sky will be providing you with more details on this in a few minutes. Cloud-based integration solutions are also less complex. They have simple deployment options that, again, Sky will cover. They have limited internal support needs. The knowledge is all in the software that's hosted, and all the client has to do is to be able to access it and easily use some of the new features that it makes available. And finally, they're less expensive. As they don't have hardware or software to install, that's a significant advantage in many cases. And there's also limited implementation expenses because the implementation is basically already done on the hosted site. So there would be very limited additional work that would have to be done by a new client. This capability is also leveraged across the full client base of the cloud-based integration vendor solution, so that also reduces the cost to the individual customer. Now here's a rather busy chart. It'll take me a couple seconds to explain it a bit. At the top, you will see, top left, you'll see a trajectory category with a blue, gold, and red line that are shown below. And these are the trajectory that we expect for the individual items listed here to actually achieve. And then on the right-hand side, you see time to reach the next phase. And so how this would be interpreted here for Saas technology, for example, we believe it's on a strong uptick. It has already achieved significant growth, and we believe this growth will continue. And if you looked at the time to reach the next phase, which would be equilibrium, we believe we're probably 10 years out from before this phenomena gets fully played out, meaning that Saas solutions will continue to be a very viable option for many situations for the next 10 years. So the previous chart indicated that Saas technology will be very popular. Well, why is that? Let's take a look at some recent survey data to see what we can find that will help explain the current and projected popularity of Saas. First off, I wanted to look at this chart shows information regarding enterprise plans related to Saas. And it's from our enterprise and SMB survey that we did at the end of 2010. And there were 639 senior IT responses. So the question we asked was, what plans do you have, does your organization have, related to Saas technology? Well, you'll see 26% said they were interested but no plans. 17% were planning to implement the following year. 13% were planning to implement this year. 9% were already implemented but not expanding. And 19% were implemented and expanding. And 15% did not have any interest. So bottom line, if you look at those that have implemented, which would be the second and third from the bottom, that's a total of 23% of organizations have already implemented some form of Saas technology. This next chart shows well, what's driving your interest in Saas. And as we talked earlier, speed of deployment was by far the #1 response, with 87% of the respondents indicating that speed of deployment was the primary reason why they were looking at it. Very closely behind was 84% also felt that lower costs were certainly a factor. And finally, 60% said that lack of internal resources inside their enterprise to implement an integration solution were one of the reasons they were looking for a SaaS-based integration approach. So this all tracks with a lot of the information we were showing earlier. Now we wanted to look at this by sector. So we show here Saas adoption plans by sector, and the sectors we looked at were public sector and healthcare, financial services, utilities and telecom, media and entertainment, retail and wholesale, and manufacturing. The big thing that struck me when I saw this chart is there's some variance, of course, between the different phases of interest and phases of implementation, but overall the differences between sectors were not that great. And this tells me that there's a lot of commonality, certainly some variance, but a lot more commonality between how SaaS-based solutions are being implemented across the full range of sectors. And in fact, if you look at this grouping in the middle, planning to implement, implemented and not expanding, and implemented and expanding, that's 40 to 50% of all of the entities in this sector are responded in this manner. So that's a very strong indication that SaaS-based technology is, again, widely perceived of having value. Now, one of the things that might not be clearly understood is when you're talking about computer cloud-based integration is the role that ESBs play. And they are foundational because ESBs provide the messaging, routing, communication, protocol conversion, connectivity for application and technology adapters. They support the transaction mediation and security. So if the cloud-based solution you might be looking at does not have strong ESB capability, we would caution you to keep looking further. Here's our ESB reference architecture model that we use to explain the features that ESB should provide. And there's multiple layers here we'll go over quickly. You have an architecture layer at the bottom, which deals with issues like availability, federation, topology, and extensibility of the product. We look at connection, which deals with messaging, routing, and connectivity. Mediation has a wide range of functions that are dealt with, including dynamic provisioning, registry features, transformation and mapping, and more. And the orchestration layer, which can be lightweight orchestration or Beppel-based orchestration. There's a change and control component that provides design tooling, lifecycle management, security, and technical monitoring. These are features that we evaluate when we look at ESB functionality in detail. Now we have a couple of slides that deal with specifics about ESBs in organizations. Again, this is from a different survey. This one is from Q1 of this year. In January, we did a survey of 167 application development and enterprise architecture personnel related to their plans related to ESBs. And what this shows is that 32% were considering an ESB at that point, 13% were piloting, 13% had implemented but were not expanding, 32% were implemented and expanding, and 7% were not interested. Overall, the groupings in the middle for piloting, implemented, both categories, come out to 58%. This is a very high adoption rate when compared with other areas of middleware, one of the highest that we've seen. And I can also back this up with my inquiry levels related to enterprise service buses are currently very high and have been for at least the past 12 months. It is a very significant area of technology. Now, I should mention here that these figures for ESB usage would include both on-premise and cloud-based ESB approaches. This chart asks specifically, well, okay, a lot of people are using an ESB. What are you using it for? And this was a subset of the previous slide. So of this group, 74 of the previous 167 were actually using an ESB already. So those are the ones we asked to respond. What are you using it for? You'll see that messaging and routing were the two highest at 92 and 95% specifically. Data transformations were third. transaction mediation, fourth, and creation of services, fifth, orchestration, fifth, and application development last at 14%. It's interesting to note that the creation of services was not rated higher. Only 35% of the respondents indicated that they were using their ESB for the creation and usage of services, which indicates to us that ESBs are being widely used outside of the realm of service-oriented architecture, which may be somewhat surprising to many folks, but it's what we had seen in the past, and so this kind of backs that up. So let's finish my section of the introduction here about the general concepts by talking about some recommendations. If you are interested in cloud-based integration capability for the reasons identified earlier, faster deployments, lower costs, there's some things that we would recommend. Number one, select a tool with strong ESB features because it's such a core piece of technology that has to be provided. Number two, plan for both on-premise and external needs. And the hosted approach of cloud-based integration, as we talked earlier, it's integration in the cloud, so the integration can go both ways and should be an effective tool. Take advantage of the lower total cost of operation that CBI can provide. No upfront costs for capital expense related to hardware and software, so that's a significant feature. And finally, ensure that your selection provides easy-to-use capability, not just for the technical team, but also for the business users. And I believe Sky is going to talk a little bit more about that as well. So Sky, at this point, I'll turn it back to you for your portion.
Okay, thank you, Ken. That was actually a wonderful introduction to cloud integration as well as ESB. And I'll actually take it from there and kind of develop our model and our solution for some of the things you described here. So let me switch it to my screen.
There you go. We should have it back.
Okay, can you see it now?
Yes, can.
All right, very good. All right. So let's first talk about a little bit about this information silos. So if you look at this particular slide, this is a kind of typical organization. There are many different groups there. You have the core engineering group where people using different kinds of design tools, CAD/CAM tools, product lifecycle management tools, etc. Then you can have a software development group, application development group. They're using a number of different development tools, requirements management, test management, etc. Then you have the IT, which is using IT service management tools like the help desk, service management, etc. Then, of course, you have the ERP being used in the finance and accounting, as well as the CRM and ERP in the sales and marketing groups. Now, all of these groups are using a large number of software, but as you can see here, that within the group as well as between the groups, there are very little communication. So all of these individual softwares are acting as silos within the group, and also between the groups, they of course act as islands. So you see all these brick walls. Those are created between the different kinds of applications within the group as well as between the groups. So our intention is to break down that wall, and we'd like to show you how we can actually do it very easily. So what do we want to integrate, and why do we want to integrate? What is the goal of these integrations? First of all, there are a lot of legacy applications behind the firewall, and this includes the big ticket items like ERP systems or the complete email system. Many of those are actually what we call the COTS, basically off-the-shelf software. But there are a lot of softwares which are actually developed on different kinds of platforms, on Oracle, on DB2, on SQL Server. Those are typically line of business applications. So there are quite a few legacy applications, and they are currently run behind the firewall on enterprise data centers, which is behind the firewall basically. And then you have the new categories of applications which are running on the cloud. And it can be running as a SaaS, like Salesforce.com, some payroll system like ADP or Workdays and things like that, NetSuite. Also, there can be many other so-called legacy applications running on the cloud infrastructure, like running on Amazon or Dell. Also, there can be some application created on platform as a service. Those are also running on cloud. So all of these different applications, both legacy and the cloud applications, needs to be integrated. But by doing integration, what do we achieve? First of all, we achieve the data visibility across the application. So we should be able to see the data from one application in another one. Not only that, we should be able to split the information coming from one application into a number of different applications. So that's what we call the data plumbing. So that's obviously a very obvious reason why we should do integration. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. We should be able to create the relations between the objects in different applications. Actually, that is a very interesting way of looking at this integrated ecosystem, because these data are not just standalone. They relate to each other, but unfortunately, they are trapped into different applications. But once we do the integration, we should be able to relate those data and basically see some interesting patterns, some interesting relationship coming out of those different data. And then we should be able to do a process automation, process orchestration across the application. You may have some process automation for each of the individual products, but what about that orchestration when each of the steps of that process is actually happening in different applications and different softwares? So that actually gives us a kind of wide open automation where we should be able to kind of synchronize and orchestrate all these different actions happening in different applications, even when they are located in different areas. And finally, we can do the dashboarding and reporting. So using the dashboarding and reporting, we can show the data coming from all these applications. And often, because of those relationships we have talked about, we can actually unhide. We can actually show some of the hidden patterns which was not possible with respect to the data in one single application. We should be able to show those relationships very clearly. So what are our options for integrations? If those are the things we'd like to achieve, what are the options? So one is a point-to-point integration. This is actually the most popular, I must say, that it is offered by both different vendors, as well as users. They themselves develop this between every pair of tools. Now, one good thing about point-to-point integration is that it is the best of the breed, so you can actually take the multi-vendor applications and then integrate them. But one of the biggest challenges of point-to-point integration is its complexity, because you have to create a handcrafted integration between every pair of tools or every pair of applications. The other option is basically a middleware using Enterprise Service Bus. So using an Enterprise Service Bus, you can actually integrate best-of-the-breed multi-vendor applications, almost any applications. But unlike point-to-point integration, you need adapter for each of these different applications connected to a central Enterprise Service Bus or hub. And by doing that, you reduce the complexity considerably. So that is actually shown here diagrammatically. As you can see that if you have got 10 different applications, then you need 45 different custom-coded integrations for point-to-point. But in case of Enterprise Service Bus, you just need 10 adapters. Just to give an example that what kind of savings you can get by moving from point-to-point to ESB is that, let's say you are changing just one application in this ecosystem. In case of point-to-point custom integration, you have to create 9 different custom codes to integrate that new application with the existing 9 applications. But in case of Enterprise Service Bus, you need to replace just one adapter. So 9 versus 1. That is the kind of savings in the overall cost, effort, and energy. So let's look at Kovair. How Kovair we actually achieve this kind of integration using a middleware. So if you look at these applications, so we have got certain applications running on-premise, like Jira. Jira, if you're not familiar with it, it's a very popular kind of bug tracking tool. Many companies use that. Actually, they use it in a number of different groups. So you can see many Jira servers running within the same company, as a matter of fact. Then SharePoint from Microsoft, which is a very popular kind of document management portal system. Then you can have the legacy data, all sorts of legacy applications running on RDBMS, XML, even spreadsheets. And then you have Salesforce, which is running on the cloud. So let's take these 4 examples. And then we have the Kovair repository. And within this Kovair repository, we can actually create all these different kinds of what we call the entities, which represent the objects in these different applications. So loosely we call them proxy entities. And once we have that, then we can actually, we have this technology called the Kovair Omnibus, which is the integration middleware. And using this Kovair Omnibus integration middleware, we have the adapters for these different applications, which will synchronize. For some of these synchronize, and for some of them federate the data back to Kovair repository in those proxy entities. Now, what's the difference between synchronization and federation? So in case of synchronization, let's say Salesforce. Synchronization basically means if you add a contact in Salesforce, that will be replicated to Kovair repository. If you change it in Kovair repository, it will change it in Salesforce. So it's a completely bidirectional synchronization. But in case of, let's say, SharePoint, when you have a large number of documents, you don't need to actually replicate the documents in Kovair repository. You just need the information about the document. Actual content of the document is still in SharePoint. But you should be able to get into the content whenever necessary. So on demand, you can go and get those data from SharePoint or those documents. So that is called a federation. So Kovair Omnibus actually supports both synchronization as well as federation. So once you have all these different data coming from different sources in the Kovair repository, now you can actually do the synchronized process, the collaboration, the relations between these different objects, the consolidated reporting, everything sitting in Kovair repository. And these data, as you have seen, can come from different sources. So that's the overall model of Kovair Omnibus. Now, what are the components of Kovair Omnibus? First of all, it's a web service based, so you can actually integrate any application from anywhere in the world. It can be running on any platform because it's a web service. It may be running on a mainframe, Unix, Linux, Windows, it doesn't matter. And as I mentioned, that these can be even behind the firewall. And it uses the enterprise service bus architecture, which already Ken has talked about a little bit, that the advantage of using ESB, and we have also shown that advantage over point-to-point integration. Now, with the Omnibus platform, what are the things you get? You get the Kovair Entity Framework, which is basically the whole framework by which you can create all these different entities which represent the objects in these other applications. And we have a very easy drag-and-drop interface to create those things. By the way, one thing in Kovair, which includes Omnibus, is that you don't have to write a single line of code. Everything you do just by drag and drop. It's completely codeless. The next thing, you have the interface to create this object relation. So all these different objects in different applications, you can create this relation just like you are creating a, let's say, entity relation when you are defining a database application. It is very similar to that, but these objects actually belong to different, different applications. Then we have actually a very powerful BPM, the business process management engine, which is the workflow engine for creating a workflow process which cuts across these tools or application boundary, which is called Omniprocess. So using Omniprocess, we have a Visio-like drag and drop interface. You can draw the process where each of these nodes can be actually happening in different applications which are integrated together. Then Omnibus also includes the reporting and dashboarding, so you can create multiple different reports in different formats. We actually support 4 different formats: HTML, Microsoft Excel, Crystal, as well as Microsoft Word. So you can create all these different kinds of reports, but the report includes the data coming from all these different applications as well as related to each other. And then, of course, we have this administrative interface to manage the integration business rules. Now, here, another very important point, how Kovair Omnibus is different from many other integration technology. You see that in Kovair Omnibus, we have these adapters for different applications. But these adapters are actually very thin layer around the data model of each of these applications. But you need to create all these business rules, all these processes to show that how the data will move from one object to one application to another application. That is not part of the adapter. That is not hard-coded in the adapter. So those are actually managed by the. And finally, we have the Omnibus execution engine, which of course runs everything. Adapters for various applications with repository we have. So basically, we have all these different application adapters, and we are actually creating the large, I would say, repository of adapters also. Currently, we have most of the adapters in the area of application development and IT, service management, but we are creating more and more adapters for the business applications as well. And these adapters are for those applications which has got the repository. For example, Salesforce is a good example. And then you can also create the plugins for various applications without the repository. I'll give you a couple of examples. So for example, you can have a plugin for Outlook, Microsoft Outlook, so that it can, sitting in Outlook, you can see the data coming from any of the other applications which is connected to Omnibus. So for example, you'll be able to see the Salesforce data within Outlook. Or if you're a developer, you're using Eclipse, for example. Sitting in Eclipse, you would be able to see the data coming from Jira, which is the bug cracking tool. So once you have this adapter and plugin created, you can actually connect that application to the ecosystem of Omnibus. Now, Omnibus is not just the API to create these adapters and plugins, etc. Omnibus is actually a fully environment for managing your integration. As a matter of fact, I'll give you a kind of case study here. One of our customers is one of the largest service providers in the world, and they are currently using Omnibus for 15 different applications integrated for 6 different locations and more than 10,000 users. So it is one of the largest technology houses, so you can imagine that what kind of technology due diligence they have done with respect to Omnibus. So it has got all these different kinds of industry strength features and functionalities to really manage that kind of large installation for integration with so many applications, so many users, etc. So Omnibus gives you all these things together, everything with a browser interface. This is an example of our process engine Omniprocess. Remember I mentioned that we have a drag and drop interface like Visio. So you just draw this process like this. This is actually a process for, I think it is an issue management, change management process which has been created. And this process actually can be running on the objects of an external application like Jira. Jira doesn't have for example, Jira doesn't have a process engine like this where you can draw and automate the process. But all the objects in Jira can flow through this process which has been created in Kovair using Omnibus and Omniprocess. And you can create as many processes as you want. For every object, as a matter of fact, you can create multiple processes. Okay, now let's come to those 3 steps. Remember, we talked about the 3 steps of cloud integration, right? So now let's talk about that. So basically, if you look at this particular slide, we are talking about 2 categories of applications. One is the applications in the enterprise LAN, which is basically server installing Kovair Omnibus adapters. And then you have all these different applications, both in SAP, Oracle, Lawson, QuickBooks, etc., as well as the internal applications developed on Oracle or SQL Server or DB2, etc., right? Then you have the cloud applications where you have, let's say, the Salesforce or NetSuite, etc. Now, all the different kinds of integration I talked about, all the different features we would like to have in integration, we would like to see those kinds of features, functionalities, and goals out of the integration of both the cloud applications as well as the legacy applications. So how do you do that? So we have the Kovair Omnibus on cloud, which is basically hosted by us, and you can access it just by using a browser. And then the first step is you download and install the adapters for each of these applications on your, for example, a server within the enterprise LAN. Now remember that these adapters, let's say you have an adapter for SAP, you don't have to actually install it on SAP server. You can install it on a different server which has got a visibility of the SAP server. Similarly, all the different adapters you can actually install on a single server or multiple servers. Now, depending on the load and traffic of a particular application, you can even do load balancing on multiple servers. That means, let's say the SAP is there are a lot of transactions going on and there are a lot of loads. In that case, you may decide that actually the SAP adapter I will install on 3 different servers, load balance. So Kovair architecture actually allows you to do that also. So the first step is you download and install those adapters on your enterprise LAN. We also have the Omnibus adapters, which you do not, Omnibus adapters for the cloud applications, which you do not have to download or install because they are already part of the Kovair Omnibus on cloud, right? So now you have all the adapters ready. You have to just say that I want to use a Salesforce adapter or NetSuite adapter. So once we are ready with the adapters, the step 2 is now we will be configuring all these different adapters for our purpose. So for example, we can say that with respect to Salesforce, these are the objects we want. We want the contact and the accounts and the opportunities and the tickets. And for that, it will create the entities. Remember the proxy entities I talked about in Kovair platform, and we can configure that what are the different custom fields we have created in Salesforce. Those will be created in Kovair also, right? So you can actually configure each of these adapters for each of these different applications. That is true for both cloud applications as well as your legacy applications. All right, so the step 2 is configuration. By the way, this configuration is completely codeless, drag and drop, just using the browser, you can do it. So one other very important point here is that you don't need an IT resource to do any of these things. You can actually do everything by the end users. So basically the end users, they themselves can configure. So basically the business users who are much more familiar about all these different kinds of configurations, they can do it themselves. They don't need to bring an IT resource. There's nothing lost in translation. And since they are using just the browser, it's a very easy way to do it. So that was our step 2. The step 3 is basically now we can achieve the data transfer using those configurations. Now we have shown here 3 kinds of data transfer here between the on-premise legacy applications, between the legacy application and the cloud application, as well as between the cloud application. So this is based on Ken's terminology. If you look at this particular one between the enterprise and cloud applications, this is the with cloud application, and this is between the cloud applications. And also we offer, using the same cloud integration, you can actually achieve the integration between your legacy applications. And that is something which is very new. I don't know whether other vendors actually offer that, but using the same platform, the same Kovair Omnibus, you can, as a matter of fact, achieve these three different types of integration: between legacy and cloud, and between the cloud applications. These are the basically three steps you can achieve all of these things. Now there is another advantage of doing this, that remember that we have got the data all in Kovair repository. So now, on top of that, as a byproduct, what you're getting is that all those data which were in your legacy system as well as in your cloud system now available through a number of different distributed platforms. So you can see it through the browser, through Outlook, or even on a number of different mobile platforms, iPhone or Android or BlackBerry. So this is another advantage of doing these kinds of integration, is that you not only, if you allow me to use this word, you are cloudifying your legacy application data, but you are also mobilifying them. So they are now mobile, they are available from your mobile application. So that is an advantage of doing these kinds of integration together and putting it in the Kovair repository. Okay, I want to give you a small demo of this one, and in this particular case, let me just explain what I'll be showing you. I've got two applications. One is on-premise application running on our kind of enterprise LAN, which is a Jira, and then we have a cloud application, which is, as you know, it's a Salesforce. It's a cloud applications running on Salesforce, hosted wherever they have got the data center. And we have Omnibus, which is also running on a cloud. Actually, it is running in our Texas data center. So we have got these three different pieces. One is Jira running on our enterprise LAN. The second one is our cloud cloud application Salesforce running on Salesforce data center, and we have the Omnibus, which is running on cloud at our Texas data center. Okay, so let me go and start with Salesforce. So this is Salesforce, right? And we will create a new ticket. In this particular case, the scenario will be like this, that we'll be creating a ticket in Salesforce. You know that Salesforce can be used for a help desk system. So we'll be creating a new ticket here. And this ticket we'll see is automatically transferred to Jira, because that's about tracking tool. So let's say we have created a ticket which is basically, we'll call it a defect from Salesforce for webinar 090811. Okay, and the status is not started. Let me save that. Okay, so here is our new ticket created. So what the typical scenario is that you get all these different tickets from Salesforce, and then some of these can be transferred to Jira or some other defect tracking tool if it is found to be a defect, not just any other help desk item. So now let me go to one of our servers to show you the Jira. So let's go to Jira here. So we are in Jira here. Let's go to these issues. All right, so let's see. So it will take a few seconds to come. All right, so it's normally the way this thing works is that it takes about a minute or a couple of minutes to sometimes move these things around. So I'm just refreshing it. All right, so I'll give it a couple of minutes more. Oh, here we go. You see? So defect from Salesforce for webinar 0908, right? So this one is now in Jira. So we are looking at the detail of that one. Okay. So what I'll do, I'll edit the, let's say I'm editing the name here. I'm just making it, calling it a changed in Jira, right? I'm changing the title here. Let me update that. It shows the changed in Jira. And also, let's say I'm resolving this issue. So let's go to the resolve issue. So it is now fixed, right? So I'll resolve it. And after I've resolved it, the status shows resolved. I'll close this issue. So let me close this issue. So I've closed it. Okay. So now it shows it's closed. The resolution is fixed. So this is what a person does in Jira. Sitting in Jira, that whatever code change has to be done, they do it, then they fix it, right? Now, the help desk person who is using Salesforce, of course, he does not have any access to Jira. He doesn't know that when it has fixed, but he has to go back to his customer telling that your defect has been fixed. So how does he know that? So we'll go back to Salesforce in that case. Let's go back to our Salesforce. So let's go to our list of tickets here. You see that? Now it shows that changed in Jira. And if we go to the detail of that, let me refresh it once again. You see that status shows completed, right? So now I, as a help desk person, I can go back to my customer and tell him that, yes, your bug has been fixed, right? And that has been actually done in Jira. So this is a very simple example I've shown, but this has got very, very important critical components in it. First of all, I've shown you that this actually does the integration between cloud-based application, Salesforce, with a legacy application or on-premise application with Jira, and Omnibus is actually running on the cloud. So those are the important components which are basically the focus of today's webinar today. All right, so now let me go back to my slides here. So let's talk about some of the Kovair unique features. So why Kovair Omnibus is kind of a better technology in doing a cloud integration. So first of all, it is based on ESB architecture, and that is actually a very important point. Often people forget that when you are talking to a particular vendor about this cloud integration, you need to ask whether you have an ESB architecture. Because even with the point-to-point integration, you can achieve exactly the same thing which I have shown you. There will be no difference, okay? If you are just have two tools, really it doesn't make much difference between ESB and point-to-point. But the moment you go to a larger number of tools or applications, and when you have got a much more complicated situation, then ESB becomes much more relevant, much superior technology than point-to-point. So it is important to understand what ESB offers and ask each vendor that whether their technology is ESB or point-to-point. The second thing is the built-in composite application framework. This is one thing Kovair has actually no other cloud integration vendor actually offers that, which basically means that now since you have that data in Kovair repository, you can actually create a brand new application based on the data coming from all these different sources. So you can create the interfaces where some part is coming from one tool, another part is coming from other applications, and you can have those interfaces both read-only as well as read-write to create a brand new business application. And all of these application creation you can do just by drag and drop without writing a single line of code. Then we have this business process integration with the Visual Process Designer, the Omniprocess. So you can actually create a business process where each of the steps is actually happening in different applications and automate the whole thing using a drag and drop interface like Visio. Federation. I mentioned that Kovair does both synchronization and federation. So and you can choose, as a matter of fact, For some application, you may choose that I don't want to bring the data to Kovair. I just want it on demand when I'm running a report and things like that, and I just want a federated one. On the other hand, for another application, you want it to be a synchronized one. The consolidated reporting and dashboarding. So bringing all these data together now in a single repository gives you a huge flexibility and advantage of creating all these different kinds of reports and dashboards in a single interface where you are showing all these related data together. The relationship synchronization, that is basically when you are creating the relationship between two objects, even those objects are in different applications. This is also one of the unique features in Kovair you will not get in from the other vendors. Mapping the users and accesses across the applications. You can actually do, first of all, we integrate with Active Directory and LDAP, so you can really have a single sign-on. At the same time, you can map the users in one application to the users in other applications, because often what happens that you don't have the same user in both the applications. In that case, you have to map them. Kovair supports the multiple instances of the same applications. This may appear a little trivial, but actually it is not. Think about this case. Jira I was talking about. So in many organizations, you will see multiple servers of Jira running. Okay, just not one instance. So Kovair can actually identify these multiple different instances, and within the same instance, there can be multiple projects or whatever is the taxonomy of different entities within that application. As I mentioned, that Kovair includes a lot of monitoring and troubleshooting tools, so it gives you a complete log of what is happening almost step by step. If there is due to a networking problem, glitch, one application got disconnected, then when it is brought online, then you'd be able to see how all the queued information during the disconnected time are getting integrated. So using this monitor and troubleshooting tools, you'd be able to see all of those things. So what are the value propositions? So these are basically the same value propositions which actually Ken has talked about, and I'm just kind of rewrote it in a little different way to rephrase them. First of all, it's a faster deployment. It's much faster than any other integration technology. We can do things in hours rather than months, and in some of the cases I know that almost more than a year people kind of working on an integration. It's so fast. It is much less complex because, first of all, everything is kind of encapsulated in the adapter, and you are using a drag and drop interface to create all the business rules and kind of graphically creating the process. So that makes it much less complexity, and that is because of that you have the minimum IT support. There you don't need a developer to actually code all those integration rules. Everything can be done by the end users just by drag and drop. It is also substantially less expensive. You pay as you go. That is the tradition of any cloud application, Saas, etc. That is true for cloud integration as well. And technology with strong ESB feature, and we talked about ESB quite a bit today. And I hope that you understand that ESB is a much superior technology than point-to-point. And Kovair has these strong ESB features. As a matter of fact, the ESB architecture which Ken has shown, Kovair already supports most of the components of that ESB framework. Also, it can be used to integrate between the on-premise and the cloud applications, or cloud-to-cloud applications. As a matter of fact, the third option is also there. You can actually integrate on-premise to on-premise applications as well using the cloud integration, which is actually a kind of a benefit typically people don't talk about, but you can actually get that too. And finally, we empower the business users for configuration and managing of the integration. You don't need the IT support for that. So those are the kind of value proposition for this cloud integration by Kovair. So going back to our first slide, remember that all those brick walls between the applications within the group as well as between the groups. Now with this cloud integration, we should be able to achieve a much better world where there is no wall. Basically, all the brick in the walls are broken now, and you now have, using Omnibus, the dashboard, the process, the relationship between all these different kinds of applications together using this cloud infrastructure. So that's the connected views through Kovair. Okay, so I'm sure that you have quite a few questions. So please use the panel at the bottom where you have the questions to ask any question, and we'll be very happy to answer them. So the first question, okay, that is always the first question, is about the price. As a matter of fact, you can contact our sales. You can email or call that phone number, and our sales guys will be very happy to talk to you about any kind of pricing. Of course, as you can expect, that it depends on many different factors. What are the adapters you'll be using, how many users, etc. Okay, the next question is about some of these different adapters. As I mentioned, that currently we have got more than 30 adapters, but most of these adapters are in the area of tools and applications development and IT service management. We are developing the different business application adapters as we speak. That includes, of course, you have seen that we have got the Salesforce adapters. So we are working on the adapters like SAP. We are working on the adapters of NetSuite. Also, we are working on some smaller business application adapters. We are also creating the adapters for different cloud-based applications like Workdays and things like that. Okay, so the next question is, so for on-premise applications integration, does Kovair ESB need to be in cloud? No, it is not. Actually, Kovair can be implemented both on-premise as well as on cloud. So if you are planning to do the integration between the on-premise applications, of course, you can install Omnibus on a server within your LAN itself. You don't have to use the cloud. But as I mentioned, that using the cloud also you can do the same thing. Actually, the example I gave you with respect to that large service provider who is using more than 10,000 users, etc., they are actually installed Omnibus on-premise. They are not using the cloud-based Omnibus. Okay, so the next one is how do you mitigate data security when ESB is in cloud, since data is synchronized and stored in ESB? Well, that I think is more of a general question. Actually, Ken, can you talk a little bit about the what is the perception about the security on the cloud in terms of whether it's integrated data, whether it is the application data on the cloud as enterprise are putting more and more applications on cloud?
Yes, I mean, it's a couple of years ago when we started looking at Saas applications and cloud-based tools, security was more of an issue, but I think it was perception more than anything else. We have not seen any major problems with people having information stored on the cloud. The multi-tenant environments for supporting information stored in the cloud generally provide very good protection for information, and I think it's become somewhat of a red herring to use that as a reason not to use the cloud-based tool.
Right. Actually, that is our experience also, that in the past couple of years back, there were a lot of kind of perception about the security. I'll give you an interesting anecdote here. You know that Department of Homeland Security is one of our customers, and as you can expect, that they are extremely security conscious. possibly the most security conscious customers amongst all of the customers we have. Now, recently, they are even asking about SaaS. That, of course, they don't know yet what will be the best kind of model to use our application on SaaS with all those security requirements. So I think what Ken has just said, that that perception of the security is now actually becoming less and less, and people are now thinking that actually putting the data on SaaS gives us a better security, because often the case that enterprise may not have the kind of security is provided on a data center, both the physical as well as the network and other digital security. All right, so I think I have one more question here before I have to say goodbye. The question is that when it is available. So as a matter of fact, it is available now in terms of the on-premise. As I mentioned, that cloud is being used by our customer today. Omnibus is being used, as well as we have a cloud-based different applications we provide. As we speak, we are putting our Omnibus on the cloud to make it that three-step cloud integration reality. And I would say within a couple of months, we should be ready. As a matter of fact, we have been under the wrap right now, and you are one of the first few people to know about this cloud-based Omnibus. So okay, so there is one more question. Let me quickly complete that. How are deployments faster with cloud-based integration? What's the process of deployment? You see that deployment, first of all, that since you're using the cloud, which means that you don't have to get your servers, you don't have to install Omnibus on that. It is all done for you. You just need a browser to access that. So from that point of view, of course, it is much faster. Number two is that in terms of the deployment, you are configuring it using a drag and drop interface. You don't have to write any code. That actually drastically reduces the deployment time from, as I said, from months to few hours or few days possibly. And that is actually the biggest reason why the overall deployment can be much, much faster than an on-premise other integration technology. And as I said, the cloud, of course, allows you to start immediately rather than waiting for getting the server, installing the software, etc. Okay. Thank you very much. I think that's basically it, and I'd like to thank all of you for attending today's webinar with some very interesting questions here. Let me also thank Ken. He's a leader and an expert in ESB and cloud integration. I'm so happy that he could join today in this webinar.
Appreciate it.
And with that, I conclude this webinar. Thank you and bye.